Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Yes, this is indeed a radio show. And I always say the best way to listen to this show, if you can, is on your local radio station. Of course, there is a podcast version that's available if you can't hear us on your local radio station. So what's going on? Well, since we've last talked, the temperatures have dropped. The humidity has dropped. And doesn't it feel wonderful? Oh my goodness, it was so hot and so muggy. Going back to the golf outing a week and a half ago, it was unbearable out there in the afternoon. Last weekend, went down to a Tigers game with my wife and my wife Denise and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Again, thank you, Uncle Johnny, for those tickets. We had unbelievable tickets at Comerica. There was nothing between us and the field but a mesh fence to stop the baseballs. I mean, we were sitting at the dugout. But boy, oh boy, was it hot. There was no breeze down. It must have been 110 degrees on the field. But anyway, I digress. But it is beautiful now. The temperatures are better, and it's starting to feel a little bit like fall, maybe. Cicadas are buzzing. And the hunting season is coming up now. Not too far away. I know a lot of people are very excited about the upcoming deer season. I'm seeing a lot of comments online about trail cameras and food plots, and I wish I could get that excited about it. But you know what I am excited about? Bear season coming up. I do have a tag to hunt the 3rd season in the Newberry District. I am not going. Normally at this time right now, I would be going to White River, Ontario for a mid-August hunt with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. A couple of things got in the way of that this year, so I'm not going to Ontario, but I am bear hunting here in Michigan in September. Regardless, my mind is looking at bear hunting. That's what I'm excited about. My buddy Ross was... he's got some trail cameras on some baits up in Ontario, and he was sending me those pictures. It's like, man, the lack of enthusiasm I have for deer hunting is more than made up by the excitement I have for bear hunting. You know, Ross and I are talking about these pictures. How big is that bear? Is that a boar? Is that a sow? So I haven't lost my passion, my enthusiasm for hunting, just for deer hunting. But bear hunting is still there. But I love... Listen, if you've got pictures of bears coming into baits, and you might, you're not going to have those for a little bit yet here in Michigan, send them to me. If you want me to share them, I'd be happy to do that. Send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. If you've got pictures, trail camera pictures of deer, I'd love to see them, love to share them. I won't tell people where they are at. I'm not going to give up your honey hole. Send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. I have a lot of people who want to send me messages and photos and questions through the different social media messaging platforms. The best way to do that is just to avoid those. I may or may not see them if I'm on the social media messaging platform. Send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. But I do want to see your pictures. And if you have a kid in the outdoors, use the hashtag #ForwardFuelsTradition. If you forget to put that on there, I will put it on, Forward Fuels Tradition. And each month we will draw a winner from those best pictures. And your family will get a gift certificate to the Forward Convenience Stores, a $50 gift certificate. How cool is that? Okay, speaking of pictures, I saw a picture this past week. It was actually posted on a private Facebook page that I am a member of, and it was a picture of me in the newsroom of TV5 41 years ago. It was 41 years ago at the beginning of August that I started to work at WNEM TV5 as a reporter. I had 3 years in at WJRT TV12 before that. So I am now in my 44th year of broadcasting. As I looked at that picture, it was fun, funny, humorous, interesting, because it was a young, skinny, dark-haired, full head of hair, Mike Avery, sitting back in the corner of the newsroom at my desk with a typewriter in front of me. You remember what typewriters are? Have you ever heard of a typewriter? Okay, a typewriter in front of me, and it made me think about how things have changed over the years. Technology, well, obviously the world has changed. Technology has changed. Mass communication has changed. I haven't used a typewriter in a while. But I think about back then when I was, working in television news, and if we wanted to go live, you needed a photographer, a live truck, a TV studio back at the station to make it happen. These days, I go live, I pick up my phone, I can go live. And I do that at least twice a week, every Wednesday morning from the radio studio at 8:45 for my Behind the Mic segments, and then again every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock for our Wednesday night lives. By the way, we are going to have another Wednesday night live at the Lumberjack Restaurant coming up Wednesday, September 18th. There was some talk of doing it on the 11th because, before we really got into, because on September 15th, small game season starts, and then you've got bear season starting. So I thought, well, let's see if we can't get our Wednesday night live in before the hunting seasons really kick off. I mean, waterfowl season will be open and such, but before the seasons really kick off. And I said, you know what? In good conscience, I cannot get together on 9/11 and have a celebration. It just didn't seem right. So we've moved it back to the 18th, 9/18. Love to have you join us there. If you want to, you'll need reservations. There's no fee to attend, but you will need reservations. Please call 989-343-0892. 989-343-0892 for reservations. If nobody answers, let the phone ring. A machine will eventually pick it up if nobody's in there. Let it ring. Tell the machine how many people will be in your party, what your name is, and a phone number for confirmation. 989-343-0892. Speaking of the Lumberjack, when I was up there for our first annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing to benefit MUCC's youth camp, I ate at the restaurant, which is wonderful, stayed in the newly remodeled hotel. It was beautiful. You might remember I had Steve Wyndham of MUCC on the show last week, and we were talking about how much money was raised. Now, you never know with a first-year event how it's going to turn out. I look back on that event, and it was an absolute success. In my mind, I had a goal of raising $10,000, and I thought that was an ambitious but very reachable goal. And again, all of that money goes towards MUCC's youth camp, getting kids involved in the outdoors. It doesn't go towards operating expenses of MUCC or lobbying or anything like that. So after the event, we had made $9,000 and some change, in the low nines. I asked the folks at MUCC if they would give me a landing page and we could continue to contribute. They said absolutely. So I went on Wednesday Night Live, and I said, here's the deal. we didn't make our $10,000, but you can still contribute, you can still donate, you can still help now. And I made a couple of pleas, and I posted the website on Wednesday Night Live. By Thursday morning, we had reached our $10,000 goal. We cleared more than $10,000 on that first annual golf outing. And some of the people who made that happen had already contributed and sponsored the event in the first place. I am truly blessed to work with so many great people, to have so many of you who listen to this show and follow me on social media, who have supported me over the years, tying it back into that picture of TV5 41 years ago. When I look at where my career has come, where it has been, how it has evolved, and the fact that so many of you have continued to support me and work with me and follow me over the years, I am truly, truly blessed. I thank you so very much for that. Coming up after the break here in the Outdoor Magazine radio show, Eric Long of Long Line Charters talks about his multi-species fishing trips on Lake St. Clair. You know, a lot of people are heading west to go salmon fishing right now. There's still some good fishing on the east side. Then Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews. It's a busy show. I don't have time now to go through it all. Tim Roller, Andrea Kalnbach talking about losing sheep in the UP to either coyotes or wolves. Tom Nelson of the American Archer, Dixie Dave Minar, and more, all coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. I am so glad that you are along with us. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination. There's such a great facility. I mean, honestly, last time I was over there, we had the Angler Quest Owners Tournament. Earlier in the summer, I was over there for the Walleye for Warriors event. They have a full-service marine shop. They have a wonderful campground, a ship store, a beautiful boat launch, and they're right there on the shore of Saginaw Bay. I mean, when you head out of the channel and go east, you're into the fishing grounds. Plus, it is staffed by very friendly, knowledgeable people. So I would encourage you to check out Linwood Beach Marina. Their website, linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. A lot of people right now have turned their attention from the east side of the state over to the west side when it comes to fishing, big water fishing. Because right now, the salmon fishing is hot. The last 2 weeks, I've talked with captains on Lake Michigan. So it seems like it's time to, you know what, let's jump back to the east side. I know there's some great fishing on the west side, but the east side, Lake St. Clair is a fish factory. Eric Long of Long Line Charters is a guy I follow online, and he's always posting pictures of multi-species catches. His website is chartergreatlakes.com. That's chartergreatlakes.com, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Eric, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, how is the fishing right now? I feel like it never slows down for you guys.
Honestly, it's starting to pick back up. We had a little lull in June, which is typically really good for us for walleye, but we had almost like a 30-day fish fly hatch or mayfly hatch, and it just seemed like the walleye kind of slowed down, but we still caught a lot of bass, a lot of muskie, but the walleye went. We typically average 10 to 15 walleye on a multi-species trip, and we were like below 5. But honestly, the last week or two, it's picked right back up, and the average size has been good. Like a lot of mid 20-inch fish being caught right now.
I feel like it is that multi-species trip that is your sweet spot.
Yeah, we've been doing it for a few years. You can't beat it during the summer. Like April, May, June is pretty much all walleye, and then from July on, it's, that Lake St. Clair has so many fish out there, and it's hard not to catch bass. So you typically start out in the morning and you catch some walleye, then transition to bass, and then you get pike, muskie, perch, kind of everything mixed in.
Muskie. I mean, Lake St. Clair and muskies, you're famous for that.
Oh yeah, that's Lake St. Clair walleye, muskie, and bass is pretty much what it's known for. And the muskie fishing's been it's been decent too. Our last trip out, we got a 51.5, 53 3/4. So those are some nice size fish for sure.
I guess so. When you are when you're fishing for muskies, though, I mean that's what you're targeting, right? You're not catching those as an incidental catch.
No, we only we'll catch them as an incidental on our multi-species, but when we're muskie fishing, it's only muskie fishing typically.
So when does your season open up? Do you start early and fish the river?
Yeah, April 1st, we're on Detroit River, and we run 3 boats down there now, so we're like 2 trips a day every day, April and May, and then June is when we transition to lake, out on Lake St. Clair.
I don't know how you're doing this because you're still working a full-time job, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm actually here today. It can be grueling. I mean, I typically do about 120 to 130 trips myself a year. Plus, I got my brother, and then I got Captain Paul working with me now too. So they take some burden off me, and they definitely help.
So what is it like these days to be a charter captain on Lake St. Clair? You got a lot of competition, you got a lot of expense, but you're dealing with a great fishery. So what's it like?
Lake St. Clair it's one of those bodies that can be intimidating for the average fisherman to go out there. And honestly, that lake is rough. The average depth's 12 feet. So your day-to-day activity out there with your standard, 18, 20-foot boat can be a little difficult. You got to pick your days. But we run our 31 during the summer. That way we can pretty much fish day in and day out. But it's just it's a tough fishery. It's, like I said, average depth 12 feet, and there's a lot of weeds. So you just kind of got to grind it out and fish known areas, and you got to work harder than you do on Lake St. Clair. I mean, on Lake Erie versus Saginaw Bay, where it's more of a basin. You know what I mean?
Well, and you got so much recreational traffic to deal with too.
Yeah, typically with the fuel prices, it's nice because the recreational traffic they're like a mile or two from shore, and that lake's 22 by 24 miles. So we usually go on a nice run. We're fishing anywhere from 7 to 10 miles from the marinas where we're typically starting. So we kind of avoid them. We drive out past them.
Are you fishing the Canadian side?
Muskie almost exclusively Canada. The multi-species stuff is day in and day out. It all depends on watercolor, and that watercolor and floating weeds typically is where it dictates that trip. But we're along the Canadian line or near the shipping channel.
Why does that Canadian side hold more fish sometimes?
Well, muskie, it holds more muskie typically. Well, and it's easier to fish because we're fishing stained water. If you took an aerial shot at Lake St. Clair, it's almost always going to be really clean. It's a really clean body of water. There's a lot of current going through. It basically flushes out every 24 to 48 hours due to the current from Lake Huron running in it. But that southeast corner will stay stable. And you get rivers that dump in, you got some Canadian farmland over there, and it'll typically have some stained water. So the muskie, the bait fish, the shad, and all that stuff will associate with that corner.
I keep in my mind thinking about, a 12-foot average depth. I love fishing shallow water. So I'm thinking the advantage of having a 12-foot average depth is where those fish are going to be. I mean, you can put out a spread and you can target everything top to bottom.
Yeah, I mean, it's as long as the weeds aren't, trying to take you out every 5 minutes, you can pretty much fish. You can put everything in the target zone. You know what I mean? So our biggest thing is every 15 minutes, you're basically pulling in an entire side. So it's not like salmon fishing or your typical walleye fishing where you control around and when you get a bite is when you pull that rod in. We have to pull the rods in every 15, 20 minutes just to clear weeds off.
Are they floating weeds, or are they weeds you get growing up from the bottom?
This time of year, it's both. In the spring, it's typically bottom weeds, but this time of year, there's weeds in 20 feet of water because our deepest spots we fish are 18 to 20, and there'll be weeds from the bottom that come all the way to the surface. So there's these long cabbage weeds that are 20 feet long, and then there's a ton of recreational traffic this time of year, so they chop up a lot of weeds and they'll make their way out in the lake, and big weed mats everywhere they'll play havoc also.
So how in the world do you fish that?
You just got to grind it. So I don't fish the lake without a mate. So I got to, I always run a first mate in the summertime. That way we can just cycle rods nonstop. So it's a grind sometimes. Sometimes it's really good, but the only way to effectively catch fish out there is to constantly do weed checks.
Have you experimented with running anything on the line above the baits, or is that just you get...
I mean, the best thing that we can do for especially a multi-species, because we're running crankbaits and spoons, is just inline pointer boards, and then hopefully that they catch some of the weeds and they'll give us opportunity to get to the bait, without a weed on it. So.
Yeah, those weeds can be such a pain.
I know. We're heading over. I'm doing my annual trip over to Ludington in a few weeks, and I'm just excited to troll around Lake Michigan and not have to, pull weeds off the lines for a week.
Do you target sturgeon at all?
No, I don't. I usually refer that out. It's just we're in a marina on Lake St. Clair in the middle of the lake there, so it's just hard for us to get up to the river. But we get them as a bycatch here and there, but day in and day out, we don't target them.
I'm thinking about those weeds. As much of a pain as they are, could you go out there and drift or anchor or whatever and cast for fish in those weeds? Have you tried that?
Oh yeah. We my brother runs his 24-foot bay boat, so he does all the casting or drift trips. So you can go out and in the summertime and take spot tail minnows or whatever you want, and you can catch all the smallmouth you want just by drifting around, or you can cast for them and stuff like that. So it's not terrible. I mean, that's definitely a way to target them. The multi-species, it's hard to do that because you're not going to catch a lot of walleye and stuff on live bait typically on that lake, which is weird. You think you would, but you don't.
Have you seen any Atlantics that far south?
I'll be catching them occasionally. Up near the South Channel, I know in the springtime they catch them up in Anchor Bay along the North Channel. But we catch a few steelhead every year, usually a few coho. I haven't caught any Atlantics this year, though.
Man, is there anything you don't catch in Lake St. Clair?
I didn't catch anything. I know guys were catching the juvenile king salmon in the river over the last couple of years, too. So it's just like even king salmon have made their way down into Detroit River somehow.
How did you end up chartering Lake St. Clair?
I just kind of grew up out there. I worked at a bait shop when I was 16, and it was a local bait shop in Waterford, and a lot of tournament anglers came in. I got turned on to the Detroit River, got turned on to the Lake St. Clair fishery, and I just would recreationally bass fish out there, and I always went down to Detroit and walleye fish, and it just kind of made sense to make it up there. And then the walleye in Lake St. Clair has got so good that there's no reason for me to go anywhere else in the summer.
Yeah, the walleye fishery we have in this state between Erie, St. Clair, Saginaw Bay, man, it's world class, isn't it?
It's definitely a destination for sure. Like Lake St. Clair has always been known for bass fishing and walleye, and not walleye but muskie. But I would say spring and fall you can go out there and day in and day out almost always get a limit. The summertime's a little harder with all the weeds and whatnot. But if you wanted to go along the channel and pull bottom bouncers with crawler harnesses, like you could probably get a limit almost every time.
Yeah. Eric, hang tight. We've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. We're talking with Captain Eric Long of Long Line Charters. His website is chartergreatlakes.com. That's chartergreatlakes.com. Eric runs multi-species trips on Lake St. Clair. He runs walleye trips. He runs muskie trips. And while a lot of people are heading west this time of year, I just wanted to remind, and even Eric's going to go west, right? He's going to go west here and take a little bit of a break. But I just wanted to remind you that there's some good big water fishing on the other side of the state as well. Also coming up here at the end of this hour, I want to check in with Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews. Their big outdoor weekend coming up fast. In our second hour, Tim Roller on casting crankbaits for kings. Andrea Kalnbach lost some sheep in the UP to either wolves or coyotes. And then this week's Ask Avery question, details on that coming up. you can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain, WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Matt Smith, Outdoor Realtor. Matt, a longtime friend of mine. He's an expert at finding recreational properties and vacation homes, and he can help your family turn a dream into a reality. Learn more online at Matt Smith Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram. And by the way, if you're looking for a new home as your primary residence, Matt can help you out there as well. That's Matt Smith Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram. Right now, though, we're talking with Captain Eric Long of Longline Charters on Lake St. Clair. His website, chartergreatlakes.com, chartergreatlakes.com. Eric, if I wanted to come down in this next week or so and fish with you, what would you recommend? What should we target?
Right now, I mean, the multi-species or the muskies, pretty much the best thing going right now. And then we kind of transition into late September, October in the perch.
Perch. Do you still get? See, that got my attention because here at my home water, Saginaw Bay, people are crying about the lack of perch because the walleye have eaten them all. Well, you've got a tremendous predator population down there on Lake St. Clair. Do you still have perch fishing?
Oh yeah, the perch fishing I would say is probably in the last 5 years has been the best that I can remember. So it's I don't know what the transition has gone through, but the walleye and perch has been really good.
Really? Like, I mean, jumbos?
I mean, typically we're going to get 8 to 12 inches on a trip. I think, our biggest are like, we haven't got anything over 14 the last couple of years, but a lot of like 12 to 14s also mixed in there. So.
And what is that just standard perch rig, anchor, or drift over schools? How do you fish them?
Yeah, we're going to anchor and on your standard perch rig or a spreader rig, and you got to have the right minnows down there too. If you don't have the right minnows, like you got to have like the shiners or the spot tails. That's key down there.
What and any special way you hook them up? I mean, is there a secret here? A tip
well,
here?
It's weird. If you go to like Saginaw Bay or Lake Erie, there's a lot of those like fancy rigs with flies and beads and stuff like that. And Lake St. Clair is so clear, and the water's. I mean, typically we're going to run a spreader rig with just snell hooks, nothing fancy. Yeah, no beads, none of that, that stuff. And it just seems like less is more. That's the best advice I could give you. And
again, probably because of that clear water.
Yeah, that clear water. Like we're always looking for that stained water. We're always trying to find a little bit of a weed bed, but that lake's a big basin, and it's a lot of sand, a lot of rock, and when you can find a good weed bed in October, you're typically going to find fish.
Well, you might have just answered my next question. I was going to ask you, how late into the fall will you fish?
Well, we're kind of at the mercy of the marina now. So we keep our big boat in the water until they basically make us leave, which has been the end of October the last few years. And then my brother will stay in with his 24-foot boat. Yeah, like mid-November typically is when, and then they want us out of the marina by then.
Mid-November.
So we would stay later if we could. Yeah.
I got to believe some of that late fall fishing is good, though.
The walleye fishing is spectacular. The biggest problem in Lake St. Clair in the fall is trying to find our open ramp. There's a couple of ramps that are open now. We have Crocker back, so we can launch at Crocker as long as it's not too shallow, and you can fish that fall walleye fishery. It's just like any other fishery in the spring where, you're fishing the crankbaits, like 1.5 mile an hour, and it's really good. It's just like Erie and Saginaw Bay, same program.
When you head over to Lake Michigan here shortly, are you running trips, or is this just going to be for fun?
It's mostly just for fun. I got a couple friends and family coming over there. It's kind of like my little getaway. So, like, I'll take out, like, some of my family and close friends and stuff like that. But it's mostly just to have fun and just a change of pace. That's
got to be a nice break. To get over there and not worry about, catching fish. You catch fish at that point, it's a bonus. Plus, you're after big silverfish that are going to fight harder than any walleye or smallmouth ever did.
Yeah, and in the last few years, it's been really good. And it's weird because this year I would say everything's a week or two ahead of schedule the whole season it's been like that. It's from April on, we've been ahead of schedule on every fishery. It's been really weird. So the salmon in Ludington right now is out of control. Guys are getting 20 fish in 2-3 hours right now, and it's spectacular. So hopefully we don't get any major weather events that are going to push the fish up the river or anything like that. But I think we'll be good. We're going to be over there the 19th through the 25th, so it should line up pretty good. But you've seen everybody catch them on line right now, so you always get that anxiety that you're going to get there and you're going to miss it.
They're going to catch all your fish before you get there.
I know they're gonna. I'm not going to have any fish left, Mike.
Eric, always a pleasure. Good fishing to you. Have fun over in Lake Michigan, and I would encourage people to go to your website, chartergreatlakes.com, and book a trip with you on Lake St. Clair this fall. All right. Appreciate your time, Eric.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
All right, Eric Long of Long Line Charters. Eric's actually working right now. Well, it's not a secret. He said he was working right now, so I got to let him get back to work. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews, their big outdoor weekend is coming up always. It's the first full weekend after Labor Day. Now, when you go to look at the perfect weekend to have an outdoor show, that is it. That is absolutely it. They've got it locked in, and they always do it. Woods-n-Waternews.com. And then in our second hour, as I said, Tim Roller, Andrea Kalnbach, Mike Seedorf talking about the Ask Avery segment. And in our third hour, we're getting ready for the fall hunting season with Tom Nelson of the American Archer, plus Dixie Dave Minar and more. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on two stations, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in, let's go to St. Joe, WSJM 94.9 FM, and north of the bridge to the Sioux, WKNW 1400 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Michigan-based family-owned Paul Perone come up with a great concept. Why buy a bunch of different sets of hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set and snap on and zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern? And if you're looking for big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, VersaSkins can help you out there. And if you are a saddle hunter, VersaSkins makes saddle hunting jackets as well. Check them out online at versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. Or go to the Woods and Water Outdoor Show the first full weekend after Labor Day, and you can see VersaSkins there. Tom Campbell is very much aware that there's an outdoor show coming up in just a few weeks. I suspect, Tom?
Absolutely, Mike. You got it. September 6th, 7th, and 8th, not far off. So, yeah, Paul will be there.
That's not far off at all,
is it? We will also have saddles there, too, for people looking at those. So, absolutely. Yeah, it's not far off at all. But
excellent. And I also heard another company I'm working with, Truck Trolley. I think they're going to be out there, too, at the last minute.
They are trying. Yep, absolutely. They're trying to get it together, and hopefully they'll be there, Mike.
Excellent. Yeah. So tell me about the show, Tom. I mean, you've been doing this forever now. I think it is the biggest outdoor event of the year in the state of Michigan.
I appreciate that, Mike, for sure. We love it. We love doing it. We hope everybody comes. But we've got a great lineup. We have some great vendors. There's always new people that come every year, so it keeps it fresh. And then we try to jazz it up with some new stuff every year. And I think we got some great stuff coming. We've got solid hunting seminars going. We've added one really, I think, exciting one. I wish we could get him the whole weekend, but Daryl Maggart, who's been writing for the Woods and Waters for the last year or two on committed dog tracking and giving us stories about how to track deer, how they track deer with his dogs. Well, him and a few buddies have taken the next step, and they've created Michigan drone dogs. So they've combined their dogs with drones now. Now, it's not legal to use them for finding dead deer yet in Michigan, but what they are doing is doing deer survey for people. And it's a fascinating new step in the outdoor world of deer hunting. And they'll be there all day Saturday. and they'll put on a couple seminars for us, and they'll be in their booth with their dogs, with their drones. So it's a real neat new concept that we kind of came together last minute, but we're really excited they'll be there. So that'll be fun for everybody.
Oh, that's very cool. And I don't know why we can't use drones in Michigan to recover deer. I mean, you talk to the people down in Ohio and such who use them. They say they're a wonderful, valuable tool. I'd like to think eventually we will get to that case here in Michigan, or that situation.
I mean, you're so right, Mike. I mean, a thermal drone, like he said, and he can document every squirrel you have in your woodlot if you'd like. So it's pretty cool, and we're looking forward to that. And of course, we always got great deer. We've got our food plots with Killer Food Plot being there and doing some seminars for us this year new.
Excellent.
So we're excited about that. Yeah, that'll be really great. Adam Lewis is coming back, and Adam has really been given a great information. He's got his Deer IQ website going, and that's doing great. And he's going to be there sharing tips on how to be more consistent with hunting big bucks. So we always like that. And we're trying to do a lot of stuff for youth hunters this year, being the youth hunt is a week later and not on the outdoor weekend. And with it being maybe the last time youth will be able to take bucks during that youth hunt. So we're going to try to put some seminars together for them too as well, and some information to make their hunt more successul.
Well, it's great food, of course, great seminars, a lot of great companies.
Yep.
I always say if you love the outdoors in Michigan, you need to be at this show, either as a vendor or as a spectator.
Absolutely right. We agree with you totally. We've kind of been plugging it as a celebration of our outdoor heritage, so we cover the whole span. It's not just deer hunting, although we get excited about deer hunting because it's September and October's right there. But we also have great fishing, and people bring in a lot of great fishing items as well. In fact, we've added Jeff Reed to our list of in-booth seminar people, and Jeff told me just the other day, he says, the only people that know more about fixing fishing reels, well, Tom, they're deceased. So I think we got the expert, and he'll be there along right beside Terry McBurney, who's been at our show for decades now with the sporting collectibles and all those valuable antique lures. He can evaluate your grandpa's tool or your grandpa's tackle box or any type of fishing item you have that's an antique. Bring it to the show. Terry will be there, and he'll give you his opinion on it. So we've got that corner really covered now. That's exciting.
Real quick, before we let you go, details on the show?
Yeah. Details, September 6th, 7th, and 8th. Friday, we go from 3 o'clock till 9 o'clock. Saturday, we go from 9 to 7, and Sunday, 9 to 5. It's at the Eastern Michigan Fairgrounds in Emily City. $10 admission, under 13 free parking.
Website?
Is woods-n-waternews.net.
Oh,
I'm sorry, it's Woods-n-Waternews Outdoor Weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know that one.
I got lectured before doing that because everybody Googles now, Mike. You don't give out your website anymore.
There you go. All right, listen,
I don't know.
I'm going to keep giving them out. Oh, anyway, Tom, good luck on that. We got to let you go. The website, woods-n-waternews.com, or just Google Outdoor Weekend.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to our number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And as I always say every week, I think the best way to listen to the show, if you can, is on your local radio station, your local AM or FM station. If you can't, if your local affiliate, your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you, God forbid, live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, there is a podcast version of the show that is available. You can hear that podcast on my website, on my social media outlets, all over the place. Anywhere that you can hear a podcast, you can probably hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show, including on YouTube. Now, we don't do a video version of YouTube. It's just an audio version, but still, people click on that and listen there as well. I am a fan of podcasting, though. It's become, I don't know, one of the hottest, most well-known forms of communication these days. And I actually do podcasts for 3 of my advertising partners, including Angler Quest Boats, Primal Outdoors, and Offshore Tackle. In fact, when we're done here in the studio recording this week's radio show, we will record this month's Offshore Tackle podcast. You'll be able to hear that on the website, offshoretackle.com. That's offshoretackle.com. By the way, the podcast version of the show does not get uploaded until Sunday afternoon, to be sure that my broadcast stations have a chance to air the content first. I want to protect those people because it's not easy to put together a network of that many stations. As I was saying in the first hour, I really feel that I have been blessed along this whole ride of being a broadcaster. 41 years ago, I started at TV5. 3 years before, this is my 44th year in broadcasting. You know, these days, of course, I've evolved into a lot of social media stuff, some online stuff, but I don't know. It's just, I've been so lucky to be able to do this as long as I have. I've been so lucky to be able to work with such good quality people. I have been able to, I don't want to say surround myself, but I've been able to partner and align with people who brought strengths to my weaknesses. And in this particular case right now, I'm thinking about Tim Roller. I fished with Tim as we were shooting a piece for the old Outdoor Magazine TV show. We clicked, we hit it off, and I thought, this guy's a great guy. Brought him in as a pro staffer for the TV show. He eventually went on his own, did his own TV show. But this guy is a wealth of knowledge. He's a wealth of information when it comes to whitetail hunting. And the topic I want to talk about this day is casting for king salmon, casting crankbaits in the rivers. These days, it is a very well-known technique. Everybody does it. Back when Tim was one of the pioneers to start it, it was kind of a crazy thing. But man, did it work. And Tim Roller is with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk more about that. Tim, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. As always, such a pleasure. Appreciate you having me on.
Oh,
good to talk to you.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. Always great to talk to you. Again, we've told this story on the air, but for folks who haven't heard it the first time, what made you decide to pick up that casting rod and a crankbait there in the rivers about this time of year?
Oh my gosh, I was just so sick of seeing these fish and not. I was sick of the narrative that had been perpetuated for so long that once they come in the river, they wouldn't eat, they wouldn't strike a bait, they wouldn't do anything. And I just had a hard time believing that those fish were in the harbors, they were in the lake in the morning, and they'd fly into the river and all of a sudden it would shut down. And it just didn't make sense to me. It just didn't make sense to me. And so I really started trying to mimic what the guys were doing right in the harbors there and right outside the pier heads, trolling those body baits around and just having those fish just absolutely slam them. And that's ultimately kind of how it started. And I still remember the first day. It imprinted on me so hard because it was a feeling of acceleration like nothing I'd had fishing before. And it was such a relief at the same time. And then the possibilities as it just kept happening over and over those next couple of days of really proving the concept out. And then my mind was just going crazy, like, wow, where can we take this? What did I just kind of figure out here?
Well, the first times you tried this, What was your gear like? What was your tackle like, and which baits were you using right off the bat?
Yeah, the basic setup was the same stuff that we were using at the time. So that didn't change a lot as far as the terminal gear. The baits, the body baits, the catfish, I was just like, I grabbed some bass plugs. And that's really what it was at the very beginning. That's refined more than anything over the years. The line and kind of refined some of the terminal tackle stuff, like the reels, when I found out, okay, here's what we really need for this, once you started doing it. But ultimately, that stuff hasn't changed a ton. The body baits is really what refined over the years, because you had to do stuff, obviously, that the fish were in tune with, but also that would withstand, because it's well, I mean, we were out there. It's crazy how damaging those fish can be.
So what did you end up, once you got it dialed in? What's your go-to bait now?
Yeah, so it was a Rapala, and the only reason I say that is because the way they make their baits, they have the wire through bait all the way through the body. I don't even know how many variations and how many knockoffs and how many different things I tried. And we could get fish on them. The fish would hit them. We'd hook them up. But so many times those baits would break on us because of, again, just how violent these fish are in the river. And the tactics that you have to use, especially like a lot of the rivers, you're going to deal with wood jams and all this stuff where you've got to put the wood to them, right? You've got to stop them. You've got to horse them. And so we can have the tackle that can withstand that. Good stout rods, reels with great drags on them, braided line. But ultimately, you're only as good as the weakest element, and that came down to the bait. And these fish would absolutely destroy baits. And so those Rapala balsa wood baits and with that wire through, they might destroy the bait, but we get the fish. I've got boxes downstairs of those baits that are just destroyed. You couldn't even think about ever throwing one again. And every time I'd clip one off after that and tie on another one, I'd always keep it. And like I said, I have boxes downstairs of them. Some of them, you'd take it out of the package, tie it on, you'd hook up a fish, and that was the only fish and maybe the only cast you ever made with that bait, because they would absolutely destroy it. So.
Well, as we are recording this show, we're getting towards the middle of August. It's not going to be that much longer before those kings start to trickle up the rivers, is it?
No, it's and I'm probably going to catch some flack for this, but anybody that knows me knows. It's already starting to happen. It's not in a place I would just tell everybody, just hold on. Don't make a mad dash for the rivers this weekend or next weekend, because it's still a ways out. But that process is starting to happen. Those fish are moving in closer. They're inshore out in the lake. They're starting to set up on some of the shelves and stuff. We're starting to get some of those east winds, which will flip that lake. And when those temperatures shift like that, that'll drive those fish in. So, yeah, it's an amazing time. It was 47, where I am this morning. And that two things, when I saw that and walked outside this morning and saw what the temperature was. One, I wanted to be in a tree stand. and two, I understand what's happening with the water temperatures and all that's going to dictate those fish getting in the river. And it's the next 2 months are some of the most incredible. I don't care where you go as a sportsman in the country. It can't beat what we're about to experience here.
Those cool temps felt so good after being so hot and unbelievably muggy. And yeah, my thoughts turned immediately to fall as well. When you say the next 2 months, what we have here, tell me more about that, Tim.
I've been really fortunate to travel a lot of places to hunt and fish. And when I was guiding for 22 years full time, I had people from all over the world come fish here. I think those of us that have lived here our whole lives, it's easy to kind of take what we have for granted. If you haven't experienced outside of the state or other fisheries, if you haven't experienced the fact that people will literally get on a plane and travel across the world to come experience this, sometimes I just think we're a little jaded, and what we have here is world class. The fishery here is so unique. There are very few places in the world that you can fish steelhead. There are very few places in the world that you can fish salmon. They just don't exist everywhere. And so the fact that we have that to begin with is pretty unique. But then the way it sets up with our rivers and the runs of fish and the accessibility, you don't have to have a $200,000 boat to go catch these fish. You can literally put a pair of boots on and stand on shore and catch these fish. It makes it so unique and so special, and it's really, really something that a lot of people can only dream about having.
We're talking with Tim Roller, the guy who, in my mind, really helped pioneer the technique for casting crankbaits for these giant king salmon in the rivers in the fall. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll talk more about that. Anyway, I'll take a break. We'll take a break and pick it up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT at 600 AM, 93.5 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Killer Food Plots. Michigan-based, family-owned Killer Food Plots. Rich Krzan is doing a great job. In fact, in our first hour, you heard Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews say that Rich was going to be doing some food plot seminars at the big Woods and Water outdoor show coming up the first weekend after Labor Day. I keep saying I'm going to get Rich back on the show here. I'm making myself a note. Get Rich on show, because the fall food plot planting season is not that far away. First thing Rich is going to tell you, get a soil sample. Get a soil sample to find out what you're working with, and then go from there. Check out their website, killerfoodplots.com, to see what the company has to offer, the different seed blends, the different services. Again, that's killerfoodplots.com. We're talking right now with Tim Roller. And actually, one of the reasons I was stuttering there at the end of the first break is I was trying to figure out where to send people, Tim, to find out more about you, because there's not a website anymore. You've kind of changed your focus. You're not involved as much in the outdoors professionally. You've now turned into what I'm going to say is a life coach. So where do we find you these days, Tim?
Yeah, probably my social media is the easiest. So Facebook, Instagram. I'm really active on Facebook. Instagram, I'm there once in a while. But yeah, people can contact me through Facebook. That's the easiest thing.
Excellent. Sounds good. So, where do we find these kings in the river in the fall, Tim?
Well, it's just like, we've had this conversation before, how spring is so dictated with water temperatures rising. It's not nearly as important in the fall, but there is a certain amount of, as that water temperature drops, it'll dictate that. I think more importantly is what's going on out in the lake that gets them in the river. Once they're in the river, depending water high, water low, cloudy conditions, whatever, those fish might be sitting up, they might be running, and moving a lot. That's a hard fish to catch when they're on the move. And so depending on conditions, if I've got a day where the fish are running a lot, and you'll see that if you're on the river and you're inside corners, you watch hundreds sometimes at a time, fish scooting across sand. If you know they're moving, then you're looking for areas where them fish will take breaks and they'll rest for a little bit. And that could be behind log jams. Sometimes it's in front of log jams, deeper pools, sharp bends, places where they'll run for a couple miles and then they'll sit up for whatever reason and take a little bit of time. Those are the areas that we'll focus on. If we have days where the fish are not moving a ton, they'll be more in the runs. They'll be in the highly oxygenated water because temperatures are up, so they're going to need that. And so it depends kind of on a bunch of different variables, but more times than not, it's not nearly as important as the spring situation. Them fish are jacked up when they're coming in, and you get in the water when the fish are in the water with them, you're going to have a pretty solid chance of hooking up.
When they come up the river, will they actually drop back to the big lake, or once they come up, they're committed, they're going to stay?
They're committed. I mean, they'll go in and out of the harbor maybe if some weird water condition happens as they're setting up before they come in. But once they come in and they've committed to coming in, and that, quite honestly, that commitment happens even out in the lake. They'll start the physiology of them, completely changes. Anybody that chased the salmon in the fall knows how much they change color. Their bodies change. So once that commitment starts, they're in. They don't go back out. They all die once they come in.
In our first part of our conversation, you said that the mindset was at one time, well, the fish come in the rivers and they quit feeding. I find that fascinating because I attribute that back years ago to the Michigan DNR. DNR said when those fish come in the rivers, they quit feeding, and that's when they allowed snagging to begin with. Well, you can't catch them any other way. You got to snag them. Isn't it interesting how things have changed and your tactic of casting crankbaits of those fish has changed the way that we approach these fall salmon?
Well, and I was trying not to
I know.
anybody under the bus earlier.
Hey, listen, I didn't throw anybody under the bus. That is a fact.
No,
facts are facts.
A fact. You're 100% right. That's exactly what happened, and we've learned a lot, I guess, right? And casting crankbaits isn't the only way. I'll tell you what we do now is we have a ton of fun in the morning, but sometimes that crankbait bite will die off, especially on a sunny day, a lot of boat traffic. We'll float skein under bobbers now, and that's a magical thing as well. So those fish will devour that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can catch these fish that 30, 35, 40 years ago, the prevailing thought, because that's what we were being told, was that you couldn't do anything to catch them and you had to literally rip them in the side and snag them. So for that, super excited that people have opportunities that have proven themselves out, and they can go out there and they can have a blast and treat these fish like the game fish that they are.
Well, and in defense of the DNR, it was a new fishery. The biologists didn't know much about them yet either, so they were going on the best information they had at the time.
Yeah, it's all evolved, right? They they were shocked that they came in the rivers, right? There was never, when they were put in the lakes to control the alewives, there was never any thought that they were even going to come in and that there would be spawning and natural reproduction. That was all brand new. That was not in the textbook, I guess, when they first started this to try and control alewives. And it's turned into a multi-billion-dollar fishery that I think any sportsman is pretty happy about.
Anybody who has ever caught a fish, a king salmon, out in the big lake knows how powerful they are. A 20, 25, 30-pound fish can just rip things up in the big lake, but they can go anywhere. You get that same fish up in the river a week, 2 weeks later, man, that's a whole different ballgame, right?
Whole different ballgame, yeah. And even a couple hours later, if we're fishing lower section of the river, we're literally wrestling with fish, in the river that were in the lake earlier that day. So super powerful, all the exact same fish. The longer they're in the river, obviously, and they're running up, depending on the river they're coming into, they're going a considerable distance. So that takes a little bit out of them. They're also changing, like I said, in their physiology. So they'll lose some of that power, that strength. But when they first come in, it's the exact same fish. And in such small confines, and now you've got stuff that they can wrap themselves around with the woody debris or whatever it may be. Like, it turns into an amazing feat, really, to kind of get these fish in sometimes, depending on the areas you're fishing. And that's what makes it so much fun, right? You got to go out there and realize you're not going to land everyone. There's days where you can't seem to get one to the net, and that's okay. Once you're okay with that, well, I always tell the clients it's better to have fought and lost than never to have fought at all. And that's where we've tuned in over the years, when we really kind of fine-tuned the terminal tackle. That's what's given us a lot more opportunities and ultimately put more fish in the net for us.
So how do you keep a 20-pound fish from breaking off in the wood? Have you real heavy mono, braid, what?
Yeah, we never use mono. That's going to be, for a lot of reasons, right? Mono's going to break easily, especially if it's getting a lot of abrasion with wood and stuff. Your baits aren't going to move nearly as good with mono, because if you're going to have to use like a 20-pound mono, it's a thicker mono, and it's just going to affect how the mono's going to want to rise on you. So there's a lot of things about mono that just don't work with this program. Braid is easily the way to go. And we've wrapped fish around logs and gone in, and I've found mine on the other side, pulled it out from under a jam, fish still on, cut it, spliced it back together, and landed the fish. I mean, You got to use braid if you're doing this. That's just the bottom line. So, and then you want a reel that's got a really, really smooth, good drag that you can tighten down on. And then we use 9.5 foot rods and medium heavy action. A lot of power in that butt section because you're going to have to lean on them. But it's exciting. Like I said, if it's going to blow up, it's going to be your hook's going to straighten out or your bait's going to bust in that setup right there. But that gives us our best chance.
Spinning rods, Tim?
Yeah. Yep. I know guys that like to or use casting rods, but for me, the spinning rod is the way to go with casting these baits by far. That's all I ever did. We use casting rods when we're floating the spawn, the skein under the bobbers. We'll use casting rods for that. But as far as casting the crankbaits, 100% spinning rods.
It was several years ago now, but you were up the river. You were casting for kings in the fall, and one of your clients hooked into a fish that was a little different, right?
A little different, yeah.
And
that's not uncommon. That's not uncommon. We catch a lot of different types of fish when we're doing this, and depending on the river you're in, you're going to catch anything from smallmouth bass. You might catch largemouth depending on the river. We catch pike. We catch different types of. We'll catch coho or silver salmon, and we'll catch brown trout. And the day you're referring to, we caught a pretty good one.
Yeah. What was a world record brown trout? That fish has now been surpassed. But what was that like, Tim?
That was pretty crazy. Never knew it was a brown until just before I put it in the net. Thought it was just a big old king. And the realization over the next few hours after we caught it, well, you and I talked just a couple hours after we caught it while we were in Manistee trying to deal with all that, the circus that ensued. And the next couple of weeks, and really for years after, was pretty crazy. It's one of those things that I'm like super glad we got to go through. Don't know that I'd want to go through it again kind of things, right? But it was an incredible testament, again, to the world-class fishery that we have here. I love that it spotlighted that in what we have here in the Great Lakes.
And, of course, you became a multi-millionaire for catching a world record fish.
Oh, my gosh, the stories. If I had half of the money that people told me I got from that, I would have been unbelievably happy. So, yeah, that doesn't happen. Just if that's still out there somewhere, that did not and does not happen.
Tim, always a pleasure. I enjoy our conversations. I appreciate what you've done to promote the outdoors here in the state over the years, and keep up the good work.
Always a pleasure, Mike. Have a great day, buddy.
You as well. Tim Roller, you might know Tim from Whitetail Journey, Whitetail Addiction. You might remember him as a pro staffer in the old Outdoor Magazine TV show. The guy's been around the outdoor scene for a long time here. Of course, he had, I think it was called Ultimate Outfitters, was his guide service on the river. He spent many, many years as a professional guide. So the guy's pretty much done it all. He's made a little change in direction of his career these days. And you can find him on Facebook as Tim Roller. Just do a search for Tim Roller on Facebook. And you will see his very thin face, and you'll know what he's talking about. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, I want to talk with a UP Michigan farmer. They had a flock of sheep. They lost a bunch of animals here last week. Was it coyotes? Was it wolves? Or what? And what's the whole story behind it? Well, we're going to find out after the break right here, hopefully, on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on WKNW 1400 AM. Speaking of north of the bridge, this segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by, well, the company that makes this sound. Rapid River Knife Works. That's the sound of my Rapid River knife coming out of my pocket, locking back open. You know I'm a big fan of these folks. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us is the website. Use the promo code Avery10 to get 10% off. Stop by the showroom on US 2 just east of Rapid River. All right, speaking of things north of the bridge, Andrea and Kevin Kalnbach are farmers in the UP. They have Furlong Creek Farm. Their website is furlongcreekfarm.com. They had a situation last week, and I'll bring them both on the phone line here. But welcome to the show, guys. Andrea and Kevin, appreciate you being along with us. Sorry it's under these circumstances.
Yep.
And we don't have a lot of time, but tell me real briefly, what happened?
We had an attack by what they say is coyotes, but we had a bunch of lambs taken and a bunch killed out on our field here.
How many did you lose, Kevin?
By our count, we lost 21.
But eight dead in the field.
We have 8 dead in the field, and then there's 13 that aren't there anymore. The patches of wool, but there isn't any anything left. There was 7 on the field that were chewed on and eaten up, and then we had 2 that came back to the farm here, and 1 died, and the other one's still alive with us. So,
how many years have you folks been farming there?
26 years.
Yeah.
Have you had problems like this along the way?
You know, a while back before we had the Great Pyrenees, we had a cow and a calf that got killed, and it was confirmed when the DNR came out, it was confirmed that it was wolves. And that was, oh goodness, it had to be at least 15 years ago.
Gruesome.
But nothing, I mean, we've had, you know, we have losses. We'll have a lamb taken. I think last year we had 5 taken. You know, we're farmers. We expect some loss. Nothing like this.
Yeah, this was gruesome.
DNR came out. DNR biologists came out and checked things out, right?
Yep.
Right.
What did they say?
They say it's coyotes. Now, from what I've always been told, you know, coyotes don't usually eat things and they disappear. I mean, these are 50-pound lambs, 35, 40, 50-pound lambs. They're gone.
There was a hole in the predator fence, you know, about, what, a 5-gallon bushel, half bushel basket around.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, you know, there was wool around the hole.
I mean, and so she tried to go through the fence. You know, she grabbed the whole of the fence and tried to pull the fence apart. She's like, wow, I mean, it would take a strong animal to get through that. And I was thinking, yeah, I don't know. I mean, quite an animal, actually.
Well, I'm not there. I'm not looking at the situation, but when I hear it described, honestly, it sounds more like wolves than coyotes. And I know you guys have wolves in the area, and there had been wolves spotted just shortly before, right?
So we're going to talk to our neighbor, but our Amish neighbor, when I went and talked to her the next day, so on Wednesday of last week, she said, well, when did this happen? I said, well, we went in sometime around 7:30 to 7:45. And she said, oh, my neighbor stopped and asked where my goats were because he was hauling hay off their field right there. And it's not even a quarter of a mile.
Not even a quarter of a mile.
From where our sheep got taken. Anyway, she said, oh, well, he stopped by and said, hey, where are your goats? A wolf just crossed the road from Kraus side across Rasky. I mean, that is right where our pen is and right where our sheep were killed.
Yeah.
And so I asked her what time that was, and she's like, oh, I don't know, 7:15, 7:30.
And so, you know, I asked the biologist, I said, well, you know, I thought they said that coyotes and wolves don't hunt together.
And she said they don't.
She says they don't like to be in the same area at all. And I'm like, well, there was a wolf coming out of that side. That's pretty close.
Do you get reimbursed for these animals at all?
The Department of Ag, so based on her report, she told me that we will receive compensation on the 8 bodies that were left in the field. Compensation, she said, I have to take that up with the Department of Ag. You know, we have UK genetics that were brought in. You know, I have registered thin sheep, they're called. And so she said, you need to take that up with the Department of Ag if you feel like there's something special. But no, generally speaking, you know, like we're a farm to consumer, you know, like we are having meat processed and we sell by the cut directly to the consumer. So we will not receive the reimbursement we would have had for those meat lambs this fall.
Do you think, real quick before we got to let you go, do you think you will ever find out if indeed it was coyotes or wolves? I mean, I feel like I know what you think it was. Do you think you'll ever get a definitive answer?
I don't think so because she's just emphatic. No, it's coyotes. And we questioned her on it because we didn't think so because of how bad it was. So I did ask her how many she thought it would do, how many coyotes would take that to make that much damage. Yeah. Because, we checked them 7.5 hours. They were only left alone 7.5 hours in between checks. And so she told me she thought it was 4 to 5 adults plus pups.
Well, Andrea and Kevin Kalnbach, I appreciate you joining me. Sorry it's under these circumstances. I would encourage people to go to your website to learn more about what you have going there, furlongcreekfarm.com, furlongcreekfarm.com. I will keep an eye on this from afar because I'm very curious how this all comes out, and I appreciate your time. We'll take a break. When we come back, wrap up this second hour of the show with this week's Ask Avery segment. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way this segment works is this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. If you have a question for me or a question you want me to pass along to somebody else, send it to me, please, in an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That is what my friend Mark Halston did. Now, Mark could have just asked me in person, but he decided to send an email because that's what I requested. He says, "Hey, Mike, this is for Ask Avery." He says, and he attached a picture of a big deer in velvet. He said, "The deer in this picture is hanging around northern Michigan somewhere, and it's bigger than something anybody has ever seen before. The rumor is that it has come from a now-closed deer farm within a mile from here. No tag is seen on the deer. Would a deer thought to be from a farm still qualify for record books if killed this fall outside of the farm?" Now, I think that's a very interesting question. I obviously don't know the answer, but I've reached out to the experts. I reached out to Commemorative Bucks of Michigan. Mike Seedorf is the president of that group, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Hey, Mike, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Real pleasure. Listen, you and I talked about this question ahead of time. I'm not springing this on you. You've had a chance to think about it. Would this deer or a similar deer be welcome in your CBM record books?
Well, it's definitely an interesting question and one that we have to encounter very much, if at all, in recent years anyway. But I think the best way to look at it for CBM is a deer needs to be born and raised in the wild, harvested in the wild, under fair chase rules of Michigan for us to consider it for record book entry.
So it's your goal. You want the bucks in your book to be completely free-range wild deer. You want this to be an elite group of records.
Exactly. It's again, deer that were born and raised and then taken legally. And then I think our standards are pretty fair. And as far as getting people recognized in the record book for the net score compared to other organizations, and people can enter a trophy into the book and be recognized for many, many years.
The question then becomes, though, Mike, as you and I talked about, is, well, there's rumors this deer was born behind a fence, since escaped or let go. Then what happens? How do you know what to do then?
Well, so you and I talked about this, and I thought about I don't know what the regulations are for raising deer or keeping deer in captivity. And we found out that they have to be ID'd in some form. So either an ear tag, a tattoo maybe on the tongue or the gum of the animal, or microchipped. So if a deer is in the wild, you would think that if you live near a enclosed deer farm, word's going to get out that a deer had escaped. And again, I don't know the regulations of the deer farmer, but he would have to recover that deer or make an attempt to recover that deer. I don't know what the DNR gives them, if it gives them a day, 3 days, a week, whatever it might be. But at some point, that deer, I believe, becomes property of the state if it is not recovered. Then if you're living near, say, a mile or two of that deer ranch, obviously word has gotten out that there's an escaped deer, and all of a sudden you're seeing a buck of abnormal proportion size of antler running around that you've never seen before. Nobody's gotten it on camera. It probably has to register with that hunter that that's probably that buck that was escaped from that pen. Now, is it legal to shoot that deer? I think that falls on the part of the DNR. And again, I don't know what their regulations are.
Well, it's just for time's sake, Mike. It's an interesting question, isn't it? And one that I think you guys, from what I've based on talking to you before, is you would have to investigate this and learn as much as you could before you would officially accept it. Is that basically it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let me read you something quick.
No, I don't, Mike.
I'm
sorry, Mike. I apologize. We can't do that because I'm absolutely out of time. If you want to learn more, go to the website for Commemorative Bucks of Michigan. It's buckfacts.com, buckfax.com, buckfacts.com. Mike, I appreciate you jumping in and helping me out. Sorry I had to cut you off. Again, a big thanks to the folks at Security Credit Union, securitycu.org, securitycu.org. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Tom Nelson from the American Archer helps us get ready for the fall hunting season right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you once again, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan, and so glad to have you along with us. It's starting to feel maybe a little bit like fall. Well, at least in my part of the state. The hot, muggy, unbearable, oppressive temperatures have given us a little bit of a break, and it's nice and cool. And it gets me thinking about this upcoming season. Now, the first 2 hours of the show, we talked primarily about fishing. I mean, we're right in the heart of the summertime salmon fishing season right now. Lake Michigan has been on fire. There's some wonderful fall fishing to come up. But, the hunting season now is just around the corner, and it seems like a good time to start kind of getting ready for this fall hunting season. as I was looking through my list of contacts and searching my memory banks, who can we talk with about this? And as I've said all along this week's show, I've been blessed to work with so many and know so many really good people in the outdoor industry. But when I'm searching my Rolodex and I hit Tom Nelson's name, I went, oop, ding, 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 he's the guy. Tom Nelson is a guy who has been around the outdoor scene for a long, long time. He's the host of the American Archer TV show, one of, if not the longest-running show on the Outdoor Channel. Tom is also an author. He's written a lot of books and a lot of articles on bow hunting. He was inducted into the Legends of the Outdoors Hall of Fame. How cool is that? So it seemed like a good time of year and a good guy to talk with to help us get cranked for the fall hunting season. I reached out to Tom and he said, yeah, I'd be happy to do it. And here he is on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Tom, welcome back. How have you been?
Well, thank you, Mike. I've been great. And thank you for the kind words. That was a very nice introduction. I'm humbled.
Well, and I appreciate the fact that you say that, Tom, but honestly, you've got the chops to back this up. I mean, you've been in the business a long time. You've hosted one of the most popular shows on the Outdoor Channel. You have been able to survive in the world of outdoor television, which is a world that I gave up on years ago. So I have much respect for you, Tom.
Yeah, that's no small feat, and you know, Mike, from your past history, it's a not an easy road to travel. But we've been fortunate and blessed, and it's been a unique way of getting by, and it's really opened a lot of doors for me. And as far as both bow hunting, meeting some quality people, some great memories. But yeah, it's been interesting.
How did you get to where you're at, Tom? How did you start out?
You know, Mike, I always, since I was around 7 years old, as I recollect, when I first started shooting a bow, and always have been fascinated with archery. And growing up in the small town of Grand Ledge, Michigan, I was blessed that there was a local archery shop, Anderson Archery, which you probably remember. You've been in around bow hunting for a long time, but Anderson Archery in Grand Ledge, which at the time was the largest archery center in the world. And I would ride my bike in there and loiter and gawk at the mounted animals, the polar bears and moose and such. And when I was around 15, the owner, J.D. Anderson, hired me as he, in his words, I need a grunt, somebody to burn papers and spine test arrows. And so throughout my high school and first couple of years of college, I worked there part-time, full-time in the summer. And afterwards, Mike Anderson was running it, and he hired me, asked if I wanted to come to work full-time, and I did. And I did that right up until I was approached about hosting the American Archer, because I was doing a lot of traveling type hunting, you know, out of state, out of country at that time. And it seemed like a good fit, and thought I could juggle them both. But within a year or so, I left the archery and went into the television production business full time, which I think was good. So it's been, like I said, it's been a lot of fun.
Well, it's worked for what, 27, well, whatever, since 1996.
Yeah,
so I think it's worked
years.
out for you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel very blessed, and it's a tough business. I wouldn't want to try it now. I mean, I really wouldn't.
Yes.
People,
yes.
Young bow hunters ask me a lot, you know, well, I'd like to do that. How do you do it? And I'm like, keep your day job. You know, go to college and get a good job and just hunt when you can.
Well, and how is hunting for fun different than hunting for a TV show?
Great point. Great question, Mike. I wish more people would ask me that, because it is a bit different. First of all, you've got a cameraman with you, you know, watching everything you do, you know, videoing a great portion of it. And that took for me some getting used to, because I enjoyed my private time. That's part of being a bow hunter, part of being a hunter, you know, as a whole. You that solitude, that being out there by yourself, and, you know, having time to think and just appreciate nature. And it's just a real personal sport to me. And so it took a little getting used to having somebody right with you throughout it all. But within a short amount of time, I acclimated myself to it, and would not even realize there was somebody sitting with me half the time. So, and I had good cameramen, guys who were quiet, were hunters themselves. So it took a bit of getting used to, but I got it done But again, I'm going to give you a long answer here. But to this day, when I get back from a trip, people go, "What are you doing? You're not out on these hunts or not on camera." I reply, "I go out, hunt on my own property by myself with no cameraman." That's the way I relax. That's my fun time.
Is there a certain amount of pressure to harvest an animal? I mean, can you do a show? Can you do a show without killing something?
A lot of producers out there don't. They think that's you've got to have that kill to entertain the audience, and I've never been like that. We do a great many shows that end up with Tom Nelson going home skunked, empty-handed, but that's part of it. Any hunter, yourself, Mike, you know darn well that you're not going to get something every time you go on a 5-6 day hunt. I mean, that's a monumental task in itself to go out on a 6-day Montana elk hunt and come back with a bull or any out-of-state hunt or even here in Michigan, which is the hardest state, I think, to hunt whitetails. And so, yes, we've done many shows where, you see close encounters. I've elected to let, this animal go or that just because I've never shot anything just to get a TV show. I just can't do that. I mean, if it's a good quality animal, good, and I'll be happy with it, I'll take it. But just shoot something to appease the audience, no. And as I've gotten older, I'm even more picky, to the fact that I've had cameramen just like, "Oh my God," just almost begging me, "You're not going to shoot that buck or bull?" I'm like, "Nope, not going to. It's just not what I'm looking for." So, but yeah, you can make a show without harvesting an animal for sure.
I find it interesting that as a guy like you who has hunted all across the country and much of the world, you say that Michigan is the hardest place to hunt deer.
In my opinion, Mike, yes. I mean, I think anybody, and this is maybe a bold statement and some might not agree, but I think any hunter here in Michigan that can harvest a whitetail, I don't care if it's a doe. I mean, a mature doe in my book is probably the hardest deer to take in the woods. But if you can harvest any sort of deer here in Michigan, you can go to big buck states like Iowa and Kansas and kill a whopper. I mean, the deer there are not as educated. They're not under the same amount of pressure. I mean, in some of my stands in Kansas, I mean, I'll have mature bucks walk right underneath me and never pick up. I mean, draw back. You can almost do jumping jacks. I'm embellishing that. I mean, it's not quite that bad, but it's true. You really can. When a lot of these states that I hunt, Ohio, I've hunted Illinois countless times. I hunt Kansas every year. I can draw a tag. Iowa is my favorite bow hunting state besides Michigan. Michigan's still number one in my book. But again, our deer, my hat's off to any Michigan hunter that bags a deer or has in the past, because that is, in my opinion, Michigan is the toughest state to hunt whitetails.
Do these other places you've hunted, do they have this history and tradition of hunting and the connection to bow hunting that we do here in Michigan?
Nowhere has, in my opinion, has the rich tradition and history of hunting that Michigan has. And I think, Mike, that's part of it too. A lot of my friends in Kansas, they didn't grow up hunting deer. I mean, there wasn't the deer populations that they have now. And so they didn't have it. My dad didn't introduce me, they didn't have the family history behind it and such. And that's really interesting to me. Well, how'd you get started bow hunting and things, especially guys my age in states again like Iowa, Kansas, et cetera, that just they don't have that history behind them, and I find that very, very interesting how they get started and such. But no places like Michigan as far as what we think and the way we were brought up. My grandfather hunted, and probably his dad and on and on. So probably the same in your family.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Tom.
Michigan.
Absolutely. Listen, Tom, we got to take a break. We're talking with Tom Nelson of The American Archer, the website, theamericanarcher.com. Theamericanarcher.com. We got to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk more with Tom about this history and tradition we have of the outdoors here in the great state of Michigan, and in particular, getting ready for the fall bow hunting season with Tom Nelson of The American Archer, theamericanarcher.com, right here on Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show all across our great state of Michigan, including Manistee, WMLQ 97.7 FM. In Sandusky in the Thumb, WMIC 660 AM 95.3 FM. And let's go north of the bridge. Let's go to Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM, where I will be bear hunting just west of Newberry, hunting with Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer, coming up in September. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Premier Maritime Training. If you've ever wanted to get your captain's license, I think this is your best bet. Captain John Littlefield taught my captain's class, and believe me, if he can help me become a licensed charter captain, he can help you as well. Check out the website pmtcaptains.com for more info. That's pmtcaptains.com. John has classes across the state, and I'm sure you can find one that fits your schedule. That's pmtcaptains.com. We're not talking fishing right now, though. We're talking hunting. Talking getting ready for the fall hunting season with Tom Nelson of the American Archer TV show. Check out their website, theamericanarcher.com, americanarcher.com. Tom, what is it? What are you doing what are you doing to get ready right now?
Well, I've been prepping pretty much all summer. Mike, myself personally, I enjoy this prepping for bow season almost as much as I do bow hunting season itself. I like everything about it. I like putting out the trail cameras and working on the food plots and clearing shooting lanes. It's just to me, it's just like the prelude to bow season, but it keeps you active. I almost feel like, hunting season is here. But right now, like you said at the introduction, the dog days of summer seem to be waning, and we're getting into a little cooler weather and such, and everybody's getting excited. I mean, number one thing, this is the perfect time for you bow hunters out there to, whether you're shooting a crossbow, a longbow, or a compound, to go look over your bow, see, how the strings look, cables, does anything need replacing? Did you want to get a new bow sight? You weren't pleased with the one you had last year. Now is the time to make those changes, get your bow looked at. Same, maintenance is important. Same with tree stands. I'm checking straps, looking at the ladders, making sure everything's ready to go. Do it now. Don't wait till the week before bow season for all that. So, those are some of the first things I always do when I'm, as far as preseason prep. But the other one, of course, is, as an archer, is practicing. Now is the time that we start getting out there and shooting. And I encourage a lot of the listeners out there to head to the 3D range, participate in some of the local 3D shoots. And I hear friends of mine even say, I don't like shooting in front of or around other people, but it's a great way of putting a little pressure on yourself, just like that moment a big buck's going to walk under you. So, get out there and practice and add that pressure. It'll make it a little easier for you when again, that moment of truth presents itself. So I'm staying pretty busy with all that. Yesterday I was on a brush hog, Mike, just clearing some of the trails and stuff. And I've got two different little food plots that I killed off, and now I've disked them up, and I'll be ready to plant them here in the next couple of days with this rain we've been getting. It's just a good time for food plots. You don't have to do them all in the spring. So I'm just getting all that stuff ready. That's what I'm up to right now.
What's the reaction when Tom Nelson of the American Archer walks onto the local 3D range? Do the rest of the people kind of shrink away and shirk away? It's like, oh, okay, I don't want to shoot now?
Not at all. It's the other way around usually. They know I'm a terrible shot. No, it's fun. I was actually at a shoot here just a couple weeks ago, and actually went back and shot a couple different days, and it was kind of fun because I had some guys join in our small group, that I've never shot with. I recognized them and such, but it was fun going along with them, and it's good fun ribbing each other, or shooting at each other's arrows. But it's just such great practice, and again, I like that. I like having some pressure, to make that shot. And there's no when you're out there bow hunting, there's no warming up. I'm going to shoot a dozen arrows to get ready for that buck to walk by. So that putting that pressure on you really helps. I do a lot of one-shot practice where I keep my bow hanging in the garage, and I'll go out and tell myself, this is it. This is the only shot you're going to get off all. There's the buck. Make it count. Again, no warming up. And then I'll put my bow away. might wait an hour or two and then shoot another single arrow. So you don't have to go out there and shoot 100 arrows. Just shooting a few arrows every day is as good, in my opinion, can be just as good or better.
I'm so glad you brought that up. One good arrow is better than 10 bad ones, right?
Yeah. Yep. And Mike, a lot of guys, if they have a flyer, let's say you shoot half a dozen arrows and they were all good, and then you shoot a flyer, they're like, oh no. And then you're trying to correct or change things and such, and it gets worse. That's very common and then you get frustrated. So by just going out, flinging one arrow, saying, this is it, this is my one shot I'm going to get, make it count. And again, it's about pressure. Make that shot count. If you're happy, put it away. And then, time you go by, fling another arrow. I like having my bow where I have to walk past it because it makes me go out and shoot that arrow.
What distances do you practice at, Tom?
Honestly, Mike, sometimes I shoot at like 5 yards. I'll shoot really close because it is different if you haven't done it, if you shoot all the time at 20. But basically, I'll shoot at 20, 30, and 40 is my limit. I practice farther than that, Mike, to be honest with you, but this time of year now I'm going into the hunting mode. I just concentrate on 40, but shooting longer distances, if you can practice out to 50 and do decent, and makes those 20-yard shots become more elementary, it really does. It makes you a better shot up close. But hunting-wise, I 40 yards and under is my limitations and stuff. But as I said, I'll practice. I'll shoot some arrows at 50 just for the practice and to make me a little better shot at closer ranges.
Can you do these Western elk hunts, though, at 40 yards? I thought those were all 70, 80-yard shots, Tom.
Well, for a lot of individuals, they are. But, Mike, I'm just not a big fan of these long these 70-yard shots and farther. A lot of guys will even practice and shoot farther, but boy, there's such a margin for error. One half a step when you're releasing that arrow and that elk, you go from a lung shot to a gut shot or a shoulder hit. And so I just, from my experience, bad things happen on long distance shots oftentimes. And I've been on too many long blood trails with individuals that thought they could make that 80-yard shot, and I'm not a fan of it. I just am not.
Isn't it interesting how archery has changed and evolved since you were a kid working in the shop there? And I'm not just talking about gear, but also the mindset around it.
Yeah. Archery, Mike, was, as you well know, was always made bow hunting to be up close and personal game. It was never meant, in my opinion, to be a long distance type affair. The goal as a bow hunter, as a hunter in general, you want to get as close as you possibly can. I don't want to shoot at a deer or elk that's in another zip code. I want them right there in front of me for that close encounter. And that to me is what it's all about. That challenge of getting close and getting up, close and personal with your quarry. That's what I like doing.
What about the gear, though? It used to be recurves only. Now I heard you mention crossbow. Have we gone too far, or is there a limit on how technologically advanced we can get in the so-called primitive sport of archery?
Good, really, really good question. So, and very debatable. Boy, depending on who you're talking to, this could go in all different directions. A lot of bow hunters, they want the best, most high-tech equipment they can get. And a lot of hunters today, they seem to rely more on equipment than they do practice and woodsmanship. And that's one of the biggest changes I've seen, Mike, too, is, they spend a lot of time working on their gear and stuff and not much time doing that preseason prep I was talking about as far as scouting and such. But our equipment nowadays is, really, really advanced compared to, I just could dream when you and I were kids, Mike, first getting started, having the equipment that's available today. Oh my gosh.
Oh, gee.
Jeez, oh, Pete. It's been a game changer. Holy cow. But the compound bows are so capable today. Who would have ever dreamt that you'd be shooting a compound bow that shot 300 feet a second, and the crossbows and the accuracy behind them, a good many bow hunters that I run with now are shooting both their compound and hunting with crossbows and such, and they're so capable. But then again, there's a good group of guys out there, really, a lot of my friends that still shoot traditional equipment and limit themselves, to 20 yards and under shots and such. And that's their personal challenge. That's where they've set their bar. So I like seeing everybody out there hunting. So I don't want to complain. Hey, if you want to do this or that, whatever floats your boat. The big thing is, though, again, I can't stress this enough. Archery was meant to be a up close and personal type sport, not a 100-yard game. That's my opinion.
I agree with you completely. Just because you have a tool that will allow you to make a shot at a given distance doesn't make that an ethical thing to do.
No. And Mike, I was really serious when I said some of the longest blood trails and have been shots taken at extreme distances, something beyond what I would, and that's why I limit myself. And again, 40 yards. That's a lot of stuff can happen at 40 yards as far as bad. So when you see the stuff, and I'm not going to bash TV because that's where I'm at, but I mean I see stuff on there and as far as shots at game. At bad angles and at extreme distances. Oftentimes you can't tell how far, but if you watch that arrow lob out there, you know that they're taking a long shot. And yeah, what you see on TV, it worked. And then you get the young guy, a novice, and he said, "Oh, Joe Blow did that. I saw it happen, and I'm going to try that same shot." Not a good idea oftentimes.
Tom, listen, it's always a pleasure. The fact that you keep it real and you limit the distance of your shots and you don't feel like you have to kill an animal, I think that's one of the things that sets you apart. That and the fact that you've been around a while, you are established. I think people trust you. I think you do a wonderful job, and I appreciate your time here on the Outdoor Magazine Show.
Well, I appreciate your kind words, Mike, and it's always a privilege to be on Outdoor Magazine. I always enjoy our time.
I appreciate you saying that. Tom Nelson of The American Archer, the website, theamericanarcher.com, theamericanarcher.com. We'll take a break. A few more things I want to talk about right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show on 33 stations across the great state of Michigan, also available as a podcast, of course. But I do say, though, the best way to listen is on your local AM or FM station, including WKBZ in Muskegon, that's 1090 AM, WIOS in Tawas, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. Let's go over to Traverse City, WTCM 580 AM. And, of course, WSGW in Saginaw, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I am in the studios of WSGW right now. But for this few short hours, this one small corner of the building, I have declared it the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. And I have a logo behind me that pretty much solidifies that, right? Nobody's argued with me yet. I'm here with Charlie Rude doing a great job as always. Actually, Art Lewis popped in his head and said, hello, Art, member of the Michigan Broadcasting Hall of Fame, longtime broadcaster. I always sneak that in when I say Art. Michigan Broadcasting Hall of Fame. Anyway, this segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by my friends at Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. Next project for the Reader crew. They're going to come over and trim the ornamental trees at the corners of the house. Now, I could do this. As many of the projects that Reader has done, many of them I can do. Now, the real big projects with the water features and stuff, no, that's beyond my level of ability. But some of the smaller projects I could do, but I have the folks from Reader do it because you know what? For one thing, they're younger than I am. They have more energy than I do. But for every hour that the Reader crews spend at my house, that's an extra hour I can spend in the woods or on the water or on the golf course. They do a great job. It's your one-stop shop, from planning to construction to maintenance. Reader can take care of it. Their website, readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. I found Tom Nelson's comments in the previous segment, Tom of the American Archer. I found it interesting. He said, just because you see it on outdoor TV doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. I will go one step further and say that I think that outdoor television is one of the worst things that has happened to deer hunting in this country today. Now, why do I say that? Is it sour grapes because I'm no longer in TV? No, not at all. I'm glad not to be in TV. I think outdoor television, in particular the deer hunting shows, create unrealistic expectations with the average hunter. For example, you get a young kid. He watches these folks go out to Iowa or Kansas or something, and they shoot these monster bucks. Kid goes behind the house, or the back 40 or the woodlot behind the house. Doesn't see a monster buck, but he sees a real nice 1.5-year-old 6-point, and he shoots it. And he is proud as can be, as he should be. Takes pictures, calls his buddy, says, "Come over, look at my buck." They come over, or he shows them pictures on his phone. Well, that's not like they shoot on TV. That you should have let him go. You should have let him grow. And the kid is devastated because of the expectations created by a false sense of hunting reality seen on outdoor television. Hunting reality is what you experience when you go into the woods. That is your hunting reality. You can't base or judge your experience on somebody who's doing it for a living on TV. Now, again, Tom Nelson creates a very realistic expectation, right? But some of these shows, and also, now I have nothing against hunting behind a fence. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I believe that people who hunt behind a fence, I support them. Because number one, they're buying hunting gear, right? They're not buying a license, but they're buying hunting gear. So they're paying tax, Pittman Robertson tax on that. Plus, more importantly, they are a hunter, so they think of themselves as a hunter. So when they go to the polls, they are approaching it from the perspective of a hunter. So I have no problem with people who hunt behind a fence at all, who hunt on an enclosure. None at all. I don't know. I don't know. I was going to say something, but I think maybe every once in a while, my better sense catches up with me, and I actually decide to shut my mouth. And sometimes it's just because I forgot where I was going, to be honest with you. So hunt your hunt. Do not base your experience on somebody else. If you're doing it legally, that's all that matters. The morals and the ethics cannot be mandated or dictated by other hunters or social media. As long as you are out there enjoying the experience, that's what matters. It's the experience that is the experience. It's not the harvest. It's not the kill. That's just a bonus. You get some fish on the table or in the freezer or wild game, that's a bonus. In fact, coming up after the break, we'll talk about that bonus with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. But don't, enjoy your experience. It's your experience. You worked hard for that time out there. Have fun. Don't put pressure on yourself. Don't let TV shows put pressure on you. Don't let social media or outdoor television create unrealistic expectations. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Now, he can create unrealistic expectations because the guy could cook up an old shoe and make it outstanding. After the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Thank you so much for joining us this week here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. I intentionally paused so you could enjoy that musical interlude. The music that I hear in my sleep, the music that we have used here for the theme of both the Outdoor Magazine television show and now the radio show for many, many years. I don't see a reason at this point to change it, because I've actually heard people say, hey, the minute we hear that music, we know what's coming up. So if that is, if people have become to associate that with this show, why would I change it? Same thing with some of the people I have on the show. If people have come to associate the fact that we wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, why would I change it? I won't. Unless Dixie Dave says he wants out. You want out, Dave?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I'm happy.
Okay.
I enjoy it.
Excellent. Hey, Dave, I was interesting to find out. We're having another Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack on September 18th.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, Dave,
Right.
you want to come up and join us? And you said, I can't. I'm busy. I thought you were retired.
Oh, no, we got cater. I just picked another catering. People have been coming out of the woodwork trying to get us to cater. I'm just trying to pick and choose the ones that I know I can do comfortably with no restaurant.
Well, isn't that nice, though, that to know that you're still in demand and you can kind of pick and choose what you work on?
I think it is. It's worked out just pretty swell. I got 3 of them this fall already. Real nice ones.
Excellent.
One for Delta College. I'm doing that one again, for a fundraiser.
I was going to say, is that the one tied in with Michigan Outdoors TV?
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
Yep,
nice,
yep.
nice.
Yeah,
Well,
that's going to be at the Frankenmuth Gun Club. So call Delta and get tickets, anybody.
That's the big one. That's the big one that interferes with our Wednesday Night Live, then, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
No.
No?
The one that's interfering with Wednesday Night Live is for the Friends of Shiawassee out in Chesaning.
Oh, okay. Well, David,
nice.
we will miss you, but we will look forward to having you hopefully at a future event. But in the meantime, I don't want to eat up all of your time. If I remember right, we were going to do another catfish dish.
Right. We used to make a catfish special. The Hewitts, when they used to come in, loved this. It was with spinach and smoked fish, pan-seared, Florentine it's called, and we used to sell the heck out of that. So you need, this is for 4 portions, so you need 4 8 to 10 ounce boneless, skinless, trim any fat off of the catfish, because, that has a little strong flavor to it. So a 8-ounce package of fresh spinach, cleaned, destemmed, and chopped, kind of coarsely through it. A medium onion diced fine, a couple cloves of garlic diced fine, a jar of chicken gravy, kind of hold everything together. Half a cup of smoked fish, whichever kind you like, whether it be whitefish or chubs or your home smoked fish too, shredded. If you had any salmon left over from a previous dinner and you smoked it, use that. Half a pound of shrimp, cleaned, 2 to 3 ounces of heavy cream, 2 eggs beaten up, a couple 2 to 3 ounces of white wine, whichever you're going to be drinking with this meal. I would suggest using the same thing, whether it be a Chardonnay or something, a Riesling maybe even. A bunch of scallions sliced real thin, a dash of mace, which is optional. It just adds a little bit more flavor to it. Flour and olive oil. So I forgot to say, this is on page 28 of the cookbook. You're going to dredge the fish in flour, then in the well-beaten up eggs, and in a frying pan pretty darn hot with a little bit of olive oil. Place the fish skin side up, brown it on both sides. So when you turn it over, the rib side will be facing the diner, which is a little more eye appeal. So take the fish out, put it on a plate off to the side, add the onions and the garlic and saute that slowly. You don't want to burn it. You just want to make the onions transparent. It might take 2 or 3 minutes. So then add the wine and bring that up to a boil with high heat again. Reduce that down maybe by a third or so. And then add the gravy, the mace, the pepper, and cook over a medium heat. Reduce that down, and then you could add the chopped spinach, shrimp, and the smoked fish. Well, you already got the fish smoked shredded, so you don't have to worry about breaking it up. Finish this with heavy cream, and then return the fish back to this mixture. Slide it in nice and gentle for maybe 3 to 5 minutes, because the fish, when you brown it off, it's going to continue cooking anyway, sitting on that plate for a little while. You could take a fork and 2 forks actually, and try to spread it apart. And if you can get it apart with nice and flaky, then the fish is done. You might have to go a couple minutes more. Put the fish on a plate, spoon the sauce over the top, and serve with your favorite pasta or rice or potatoes. It's like we used to sell this like crazy.
Oh, it sounds like a good one, David. I appreciate that. Always a pleasure. We'll let you go. Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. Unfortunately, he can't join us for our next Wednesday Night Live, which will be Wednesday night, September 18th at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. Call for reservations, 989-343-0892, 989-343-0892. Tell him how many in your party, and give a phone number so we can give you a call back. I will look forward to that. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Can't wait to hear from you, and I will look forward to talking with you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.